Um, let's see. Let me go into our comments. Oh, great. I can see us. We don't have anybody in the chat now, so we'll just give people a few more moments, okay?
Okay.
Oh, great. I can see us. We don't have any. Well, how are you doing this morning?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm good. I'm out of practice at talking to people. So.
Yeah, it's not my favorite thing to do either.
But really, at this point, I'm out of practice at talking to people at all. You know, I've been so isolated by staying home between working and the pandemic and all of that. You know, I'm not getting out and about the way I normally do.
Right. Now, is that, so it looks like you're in your studio. Is that your home studio?
It is my studio and it is in my backyard.
Oh, wonderful. It looks like you're getting a lot of really nice natural light.
Yep, it has great natural light. Sometimes too much.
Awesome. And you're based in the Charlotte area?
I'm in Plaza Midwood.
Oh, okay, nice.
Sort of the fringe of that didn't used to be Plaza Midwood, but now they call it Plaza Midwood.
Okay. Well, greetings, everybody. We're just waiting for a few more guests to join us. Good morning. We're just going to do a little bit of banter for a second, and then we're going to get started. So thanks for joining us, and good morning. And how long have you been in Charlotte, Susan? Or are you from here?
No, I moved here in 1991, and I moved here from Los Angeles, but I'm originally from the Northeast.
Okay, wonderful. The Northeast, okay.
Well, the suburbs of Boston and New York City.
Okay, I wonder how come I didn't know that. I went to school in Boston.
Where'd you go to school?
I went to Boston University.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Great. Well, that must have been a nice, my parents did the same move to get to some warmer weather, so yeah.
Yeah, I did it in the midst of college. I started off going to Syracuse University, where it's really cold.
Yes. Yeah.
And nasty. And then I moved to the San Francisco Bay Area and then kind of bounced around the country for a while in different places. And
now you settled in Charlotte.
I did.
Awesome.
Quite unexpectedly, but I did.
Okay. All right. Well, Susan, it looks like we have, Kate says, hello, Susan.
Hi. Is that Kate from Canada?
It says Kate Colley.
Oh yeah, she's from Canada.
Awesome.
She used to live next door to me in Charlotte.
Hi, Kate. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and get started, Susan, and wait for some more folks to just pop in as we go along.
Okay.
All right. So I want to say good morning. Good morning to our viewers. Good morning to everybody who has been following Susan Brenner in her career. And I want to say a special good morning to the members of the Charlotte Council of Garden Clubs, and extend a special thank you to Jill Rogers and Mary Beth Collins for helping to organize this virtual community engagement event and just being so wonderful to work with and helping to put this together. So what we're going to do today is introduce the artist Susan Brenner, and she's going to give you all an overview of her practice, her work over the past a few decades, and then talk about a really special project that she is working on for CLT Airport. But before we get into that, and before I throw it to Susan, I just wanted to do a little bit more of tone setting and additional introductions. My name is Amina Cooper. I am the program director for the public art program, specifically for CLT Airport, and I work for the Arts and Science Council here in Charlotte. And if anybody's unfamiliar with the work that ASC does, I'm happy to acquaint you. We serve as the designated Office of Cultural Resources for the City of Charlotte, Mecklenburg County, and 6 suburban towns by providing advocacy services, cultural education programs, granting, cultural planning, fundraising, a lot of different services, all by combining resources from local and state government with those from the private sector to maximize impact. Our mission is to ensure access to an excellent, relevant, and sustainable cultural community for the Charlotte-Mecklenburg region. And our vision is culture for all. So that means that everybody has equitable access and opportunity to explore all of the cultural resources that Charlotte has to offer. One of them being Susan Brenner, who's here today to talk about her practice and her artwork. So a little bit more about our public art program. Our public art program is responsible for planning, artist selection, contracting, community engagement, and all of these different elements and aspects that go into creating artwork that is cited within the community. And I want to acknowledge my colleagues that help all of us do this work. That would be Erin Taylor, Randella Foster, Todd Stewart, and our Vice President, Carla Hanzal. We do this work because we believe that public art is integral to community fabric. It recognizes the potential of art to create livable cities and enhance neighborhoods and just, bring communities together, which is needed more than ever. So with all of that introduction out of the way, I'm really happy and pleased to introduce Susan Brenner. And so I will read from her bio. Susan Brenner, for the past 3 decades, has been creating paintings, installations, visual textual works that examine complex topics. She is a painter who works with photography, digital imaging, and drawing. Her themes have included feminine identity, the language of gesture, migration, and change. Her work has been featured at Los Angeles Contemporary Exhibitions, the Boulder Museum of Contemporary Art, the Columbia Museum of Art, North Carolina Museum of Art, and the Mint Museum of Art, among others. She recently completed public art for Charlotte's Cats Links Blue Light Rail and is now creating art for Charlotte's Airport. Susan Brenner has received a Pollock Krasner Award Foundation grant, as well as the Southern Arts Federation NEA Regional Fellowship Award, as well as 2 North Carolina Artist Fellowships. So congratulations to her. She received her MFA from the University of Southern California. She is also an associate professor emeritus in the Department of Art and Art History at UNC Charlotte. So it's a given. She is a very well-noted award-winning artist, and we are so pleased that she will be working on a public art project for CLT Airport. She is going to, later on in her presentation, talk a little bit about what that project is. It's a terrazzo design. And so you'll see as she talks about her design, why we decided that, just having this event in conjunction with the Charlotte Council of Garden Clubs was most appropriate. So we hope that if you're in the audience, if you're on YouTube watching this, that you'll, during the course of her presentation, pop in and ask questions. We'll have a brief Q&A at the end of her presentation, and we want to talk to you. We want to get your input on the work that you're seeing, specifically her designs for the airport, and we'd love your feedback. So with all of that said, Susan, thank you so much for being with us here today. I am going to add your presentation here, and you just want your presentation up on the screen, correct?
Correct.
Okay, all right. Well, here we are, and let's get started.
Well, hello, everyone. Greetings, and thanks for being here. And thanks to Amina and everyone else at the ASC for providing me with this platform to talk about my work and the opportunity to make a public art project for Charlotte's Airport. I'm going to start by talking about my studio work because most of my career has been focused on studio art rather than public art. And I'm going to do a very, very brief overview of that work and not talk about the individual bodies of work, but just give you a general sense of it. So I see my studio work as a critique of society or a way to comment on it and raise questions for viewers. And my themes have included issues of feminine identity, the language of gesture, the body and society, and for many years now, various forms of migration and change. And for the past 10 years or so, I've been particularly interested in the rapid pace of change in the world. And I've tried to reflect that concern in my work. And if you want to learn more about my studio-based work or all of my work, you can visit my website, and there are lots of pictures there, along with statements about each body of work. That's many years of work dispensed with in a few minutes, but on to public art. So I approach my public art very differently and see it as having a different role to play, a different function than my studio art. I see my public art as a way to improve people's experience of daily living. And hearing Amina's statement about the way the ASC sees public art, I feel like it's almost as though I cribbed what I have to say from them, but I didn't. We're just in sync on this. My interest in public art is really based on a belief in the importance to communities of well-designed aesthetic experiences in public spaces. I believe that good design and beauty in public spaces can help build a sense of connection among people. And I want my public art to be a celebration of its community context and a source of beauty that brings pleasure and joy in public spaces. So my first major project, public art project, was for Charlotte's Light Rail. And I created art for the elevator stairway towers that sit on 2 station platforms and connect the platforms to parking garages via pedestrian bridges. So Waterfall, which you see here, and Red Tree, which you'll see in a minute, are integrated into the glass units that make up what's called the curtain walls of each tower. And the art for the 2 towers is purposefully distinct to aid riders in distinguishing between the 2 stations. However, the art for both towers references Charlotte's physical terrain, its magnificent trees, red clay soil, and multiple creeks. Metaphors of circulation, change, and transformation inform the imagery, and the branching structure of trees and the relationship of the structure and patterns of growth in movement enhance the connections between the imagery and its context, which is a growing city. And I think you can see a little bit in this slide. I'm just going to go back one. You can see it better here, the tree forms, the trunks and branches that are silhouetted within these multicolored forms. Okay, and here's the red tree in its schematic design drawing form so you can get a sense of the overall structure of the design. And I created this abstracted tree form that's made up out of triangular pieces of silhouetted photographs of bare leaf trees or bare limb trees. So I took the photos during the winter or just before the trees leafed out in the spring, and then made these triangular pieces and put them together. Whoops, I'm going the wrong way. Okay, so here's the interior view of that space from the top, and then looking down. And it's a little difficult to see the triangular pieces in these views, but I think you can see it. I don't know if you can see my arrow from my mouse going across in the far end of the space towards the top. You can see where there's a division between triangles. And then here's the view from the station platform level, and I want you to notice the reflections of the color from the glass on the pavement. Okay, so, and in this slide, you see a really good view of the pedestrian bridge that connects the tower over to the parking deck. Okay, so here is the current project for the CLT Airport. It's for the terminal lobby expansion that's going on. It's been under construction for a while, since before the pandemic. And my art will be on a mezzanine that provides access from the ticketing area over to a parking deck. And it's one of two mezzanines. It's the west one, and there will be terrazzo art by another artist on the east mezzanine that you can see over to the other side of the Queen Charlotte statue. And then a third piece of terrazzo art will be down in the baggage area by yet another artist. Okay, so when I first saw Charlotte 30 years ago, the beauty of its physical environment really struck me. It was springtime with dogwoods, azaleas, and camellias in bloom, and it looked like a paradise. I was coming here from Los Angeles, and I had never been to Charlotte before, and Los Angeles has a very different climate and a very different landscape, and there's a lot of concrete, and so Charlotte just looks so lush and floral and beautiful. And when I moved to Charlotte to teach at UNCC, I met people who were very much involved in gardening amidst the artists and academics I was meeting. Eventually, I was drawn into gardening in my own yard. And I think if you spend much time at all in Charlotte, you have to appreciate the natural beauty that we have here. It's clear to me that the character of our physical surroundings has greatly impacted the character of the city. So when deciding what aspect of Charlotte to choose as the subject for my airport floor art, I looked back to my initial experience here. And of course, it helped that it was spring and all these flowers were in bloom again when I was making that decision. But I decided to celebrate the area's profusion of flowers and its culture of gardening. And I set out to recreate the feeling of being in a floral paradise. I wanted to create a space that brings joy to visitors as they enter and leave the airport ticketing area. Airports are busy places of transition, and they can be really anxiety producing. So I wanted to introduce a counterpoint to the overall gray business-like atmosphere. And knowing also that people would likely be moving quickly through the mezzanine space, I meant to create a sense of active but happy movement. So, and then in terms of my design decisions, since dogwoods and camellias seem to be emblematic of the region, I chose them as the focus of my design rather than another type of flowers. And other considerations I had in addition to choosing the subject matter were things such as the requirements of terrazzo, the shape, the location and the function of the floor space and its context, as well as the architectural colors that would surround the art. Luckily, camellias were in bloom when I started the design process, and so I began by taking pictures of them on my morning walks and in my own yard. And at first, I was really attracted to the double camellias with all their multiple layers of petals. But when I started trying to work with them, I realized that they didn't translate so well into terrazzo-friendly images. And so I ended up, for the dark pink camellias, having to do internet research to find a flower that fit my needs. And here's the flower that I chose that the pink camellias are based on. It's the Camellia japonica St. U. And for the white camellias, they come from a photo of a camellia in a yard I pass on my morning walk, and I don't know what the cultivar is, so if anybody can tell me the name of the cultivar, I'd really appreciate it. I think it's quite a lovely flower. Okay, so the color scheme for my design, as you probably noticed, is based mostly on the actual flower and leaf colors, though I did choose what color of camellias to use, just as you would if you were designing a garden. The other color decisions are based on the aesthetic needs of the design and its surroundings. And you've probably noticed that the flower and leaf forms are simplified into shapes, and it's kind of like a coloring book, really. And this is because of the requirements of the terrazzo process. So just to give you a little sense of how all this is constructed, the outlines you see here define the shapes and color areas of the design. So I created the design using Adobe Illustrator, which is a vector-based software program, which means that it's just all based on lines and can be enlarged and made smaller without any loss of quality. But it means that everything is dependent on these lines. So it's a lot of shapes overlapping right now, but once the design is finalized based on the cost estimate from the terrazzo designer who will actually physically construct the work, the extra lines that you see that come from the overlapping shapes will be eliminated. And excuse me, it's still up in the air whether the design may be the way you saw it, as a kind of like an area rug in the space, or it may fill the entire space more like wall-to-wall carpeting. And there are slight differences in the arrangements of elements based on which shape the overall design will take. But once that's finally decided, then all of the extra lines will have to be eliminated, and you just have little, it's like pieces of a puzzle that will fit together precisely. So here are a couple of images I found online that will give you a sense of how terrazzo is constructed, and apologies for not crediting the photographers. It's a very hands-on, labor-intensive process. For the most part, metal divider strips are laid out like you see happening here, and they match the outlines of the design. And then an epoxy resin with an aggregate of stone or glass is mixed to match each specified color. That's then poured into the divider strips, allowed to harden, and then sanded down and polished. Now, this is a really simplified explanation of the process, and there are some specialized techniques that terrazzo contractors can do, but this gives you just a bit of a sense of what's involved. So that is the end of my prepared remarks.
Awesome. Thank you so much for going through that. I understand that some of our visitors, I think, are just now getting to our YouTube. I think they went to a different link. So if you don't mind, can you go back to just some of the earlier images of your overall design for the space?
Sure.
I just want to make sure that, there we go. I want to make sure that everybody who's probably just now, can you go to the other one, that of the rendering of the space? Yeah, there we go. Okay. I want to make sure that everybody that's seeing this for the first time has a chance to look at this design. Can you talk a little bit more about the color scheme? I really love the bright pops of pinks and yellows. And I think that the choice of sort of the background color is really interesting. Can you walk us again through sort of how you decided and settled on some of the colors that you're using?
Okay, well, let me go here, because some of my choices were based on that huge blue wall. And of course, the fact that most of the airport is very gray and sort of whitish, but the art will be right up against that blue wall. And initially, I had the art filling the entire space of the mezzanine, so the colors were butting right up against the blue. So that influenced my decision in quite a large way. And I knew I wanted to have pink camellias, or almost red, but not quite red. I wanted pink. And then, and I knew I wanted to, with those, mix the white to go with the dogwood colors. And of course, dogwood has a lot of subtle colors within the dogwood, but I couldn't represent all of that. Plus, I wanted some things that were more simplified than others. And right. Back to the pink camellias, if you follow along, they follow kind of a path. They create a sense of movement through the design, as do the whites for the dogwood flowers. And then the variation in the white dogwoods and the dogwoods that are more tan is to create a certain amount of depth in the space. So it's so you have a sense of being able to move into the space. And since it's on the floor, it would be right, like falling into the space. And then with the leaves, I was trying to create a distinction between the camellia leaves and the dogwood leaves, so you would be able to see the difference between the two. And then where some of the dogwood leaves are more in tonal scale of the background color, that is to also make a more complex sense of spatial depth. And so it's not just like one layer clearly on top of another.
Right. And I think especially when this is fabricated in a terrazzo, there's just going to be so much more depth. And, right now it just reads as a flat sort of two-dimensional image, but with the terrazzo and the different sort of layers and thickness, it's going to be such a beautiful work. Did you describe how you settled on those two flowers? I mean, are these flowers that you selected because they're emblematic for Charlotte, or they're your personal favorite?
No, I selected them more because they work in terrazzo, in the form of shapes.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a really wide variety of camellias here in Charlotte, an incredible variety of them. And, it's in my talk, I've mentioned that at first I was trying to use the really fancy flower forms that had lots of layers of petals, and they just ended up looking like blobs. And, you couldn't really get the feeling of them as camellia flowers or as much of anything. They were too complex. So I had to choose flowers that had a certain level of simplicity. And for the pink camellias, as I mentioned, I had to turn to internet research because, I had been taking pictures of the fancy camellias. And then by the time I was ready to, had figured out that those didn't work, the camellias the blooms had passed. So they weren't out there for me to photograph anymore. So I had to find them in another way. But I was just lucky with this, the white camellia that I chose, that even though it is a multiple layer, it's not quite as dense as some of them, and they just happen to work for translating.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Susan, we have a couple of comments and some questions, and I want to encourage more. So, and I'm going to see if I can pop these up on the screen. So this is just a really nice comment from Kate.
Okay.
Susan's experience as a painter shows in its design. She has such a sophisticated understanding of color. She's talking about that right now. A lot of thought went into choosing the exact colors. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yep. Thank you, Kate.
Thank you, Kate. And let's see, we have another comment, a question from Anne. Will there be signage somewhere with info about the design and artist? And so with most of the public art projects that ASC is involved with, that's just another area where we choose to just sort of bring some awareness about what it is people are actually looking at. Just sort of like you would see sort of didactics in a museum. We always have plaques or signage of some sort. And we usually design this, at least in our case, in consultation with the airport, and also in consultation with the artist. A lot of times we pull directly from the artist statement to help design the plaques and the signage that you see accompanying the work. And it's really not to tell you how you should feel about it, but just to give you a little bit more insight about the artist's intent and sort of their inspiration behind the work. It's tricky to do that in 40 words, but that's normally what we do. That is our process. I'm gonna keep adding comments as I see them. Okay, Susan?
Okay, sounds good.
Great. I love how the colors allow the art to really stand out and contrast the open white space. Being a native of Charlotte, use of dogwoods brings in the history of Charlotte and prominent trees in the area.
Yay.
I agree. Yeah, no, the dogwoods are beautiful. They're one of my favorites, and I just think that when you see them, you just think about the South. And I agree about that comment and the earlier comment about the choice of colors and how they provide a really nice pop and contrast. They work really, really well with the blue that the airport uses a lot in its interior designs.
Thank you.
So, yeah, kudos. So far, a lot of really great feedback. please continue to ask and add questions and add your comments. We don't have a lot of time, but I do want to get to as much of those as I can.
Does anybody recognize that white dogwood?
Oh, right, because you wanted to know what the
cultivar is.
Yes, what the cultivar is. So if there's any experts, I know that the Charlotte Council of Garden Clubs has a lot of them. Please let us know. I don't know if you touched on this in your presentation, but can you talk a little bit about how you made the transition from working as a visual artist into creating public works?
Well, I'm still doing both. I mean, I've not completely transitioned away from doing studio-based art, but I don't know. I just made an application. You know, I had done some temporary public art in the form of taking part in public performance art. And then I did a piece in Poland for an art festival that was a video that was projected onto the water and at night. And then I just was interested in it. My interest in it grew. And so I put in applications, and then I got the project for the light rail, which started off to be a fairly small project. And because initially the buildings, the elevator stairway buildings were much smaller. I think actually they were just elevators. And then those buildings expanded and the project expanded. And that lasted over a period of about 6 years, I think, from start to finish, with the last recession got in the middle there and slowed it down. But it was just a matter of applying to do this and then working through the process with the arts administrators and talking to other artists.
Right.
and so, yeah, I've got kind of a dual career going. I'm interested in both things.
Awesome. Okay. So we have another comment from Cheryl. Simple petals work great, and the color palette is beautiful. Should achieve the result of happy transit.
Yay.
Yeah. No, I really do believe that. I think that the square footage, it's about a 1,400 square feet of space for that mezzanine. It's going to overlook the ticket lobby area. And I think it's just going to be beautiful. It's going to get a lot of light. And it's has a large footprint. So you're going to feel like you're in the middle of a garden. And so, yeah, I do agree. Thank you so much for your comment, Cheryl. And we have one more. It's a question.
Oh, hi, Cheryl Palmer. She used to be director of education at the Mint.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Thanks for joining us, Cheryl. Kate says, will any special maintenance be required for this piece, and whose responsibility is that?
Good question.
That's a great question. Yeah. So generally, ASC will work with the artist. The artist will design the work, and we'll just keep providing them with the tools and the resources that they need. But once that design is approved and it gets to the fabricator and it's fabricated and installed, it becomes the responsibility of sort of the client, and in this instance, it's the airport. So the airport will be responsible for maintenance of this piece. And that's interesting. This will be my first terrazzo project. I think, Susan, it might be your first terrazzo project as well. Yes. So I feel like it's probably cleaned in the same way that floors. I mean, it's such a durable way to create work that you're going to clean it in the same way that you would clean a floor. You're definitely not going to, attack it with a sledgehammer. You're just going to take care of it and make sure that it's polished and, but it's basically epoxy and encased in a lot of hard material and rock. So in aggregate, so it's pretty well protected. And I don't think that it requires a lot of special maintenance, but we will find out. We will discover what that is, but it will definitely be the responsibility of the airport. But it's one of those works that will last a lifetime. So we're really excited about that opportunity for Susan to create such a work that will just be iconic and long lasting. So yeah, thanks for that question. Okay, great. I think those are all the questions and the comments that we have from our audience. It looks like the feedback has been pretty positive about the design. Hopefully we will get more feedback, and I will send these images out to our sort of liaisons at the Charlotte Council of Garden Clubs, and maybe somebody might have an answer about the cultivar and a little bit more information about the flowers that you've used.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Did you have any other anything else that you wanted to add about the design, your process, and other projects that you're working on in the future?
No, I'm really, other than this right now, I'm really focused on studio art. And I guess you can see let's see if I move over this way.
Oh, yeah, we get a tour. Nice.
You can see a little bit into my studio, and there's a series of small pieces that I'm working on that are related to the last body of work I showed at the beginning, which is called The State of Things. And they, although they're brightly colored, they have a much less happy tone than the public art. I just see public art and my studio-based art as having these really different functions. One is more celebration, bringing people together, and the other is more critique. So that's where that's going.
Okay, great. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing that. Are you associated with a gallery in the local area?
Oh, yes, I am. And I should have mentioned that. Elder Gallery of Contemporary Art carries my work. And so they have pieces from a number of different bodies of work. So you can see it there, and you can, in addition to being able to see my work on my website, you can see some of my work on their website.
Great. And do you mind, I don't know if you have your presentation still handy, but can you pull it back up? I just want to hold it up on the screen for anybody who, because I'm seeing our numbers go up and down, so I feel like people are steadily kind of coming in. So I want to just make sure that they are able to see your design one last time.
Okay.
Before we conclude there we go. I will add this. There we go. Okay. Yes, so a really beautiful floral design that's really inspired by Charlotte's tradition of gardening and our flora and fauna. So very beautiful, and we've gotten a lot of really positive comments. If anybody else has any questions or comments or ideas, if you have strong objections to camellias and think that another flower should go there, we want to hear all of this feedback. And so I have another question about the timeline for the project. So this project is being fabricated and actually designed in conjunction with the construction for what the airport is calling the terminal lobby expansion. So, and it's going into that new building that's sort of the new face of the airport as you enter in and you check in and get your ticket and move on into the terminal and the concourses. I believe that the construction, at least for this aspect of the work, these terrazzo projects will occur 2021, 2022. And hopefully that the unveiling of the TLE will occur 2023. That is, just off the top of my head, I could be incorrect, but it's very much a long range sort of project. And Susan was brought on board in about 2018 to create this design along with two other artists that have created terrazzo projects. So I hope that answers your question. Great. Yes, thank you so much. You're getting a lot of really supportive comments.
That's great.
Right. Yes, and I really love those details too. About how many epoxy colors are a part of this design?
At this point, I have it down to 23.
Okay. So basically there's 23 separate colors, and the terrazzo contractor will have to sort of pour each of these colors to create this landscape. So
Correct.
Yeah.
And the on the pink camellias, they won't be putting the divider strips in between the individual colors. They'll be creating those with a different technique that allows them to do that without divider strips, and there'll just be a divider strip around the outside of the pink camellias. But everything else has a divider strip between individual colors.
Yep, absolutely. I think that's a really great idea and recommendation from the terrazzo team. So Susan is really designing this in consultation with a lot of really other great partners at the airport and the airport's subcontractors. That includes a team of interior designers as well as a specialist in terrazzo. So they're looking at her designs and saying, this is great. We should look at this type of divider strip and this sort of technique, so that really the intention of the artist is fully maximized and realized in this project. All right, and so we have another comment. Your work is beautiful. This is from Evelyn Folly. Susan, your work is beautiful and will bring many people joy as they walk through the airport. Thank you, Evelyn.
Oh, thanks, Evelyn. I know Evelyn. And I know she's a gardener.
Oh, great. All right, so it looks like so far this is gardening approved.
Okay.
Right. Okay, well, if there aren't any other questions or comments for Susan, Susan, I will throw it to you for just some final words of a closing, and then we will conclude this. We'll leave the video up for a while. So if you're seeing this outside of our live stream and you want to add comments or just some thoughts about Susan's work, please feel free to do so.
Well, I have a question for you, Amina. Actually, how do people access the video? Do they go to the ASC website, or is there a specific way they would search for it?
ASC has a YouTube page. So this is streaming live on the ASC YouTube. I believe the channel's name is ASC Charlotte. So it'd be, if you go onto YouTube and you just search for our channel, this will be on the website. Okay. Or on the YouTube page, on the official ASC Charlotte YouTube page.
Okay.
Yep.
That sounds good. Final comments. Let's see. Well, it's been a really interesting process doing this, and I'm excited to see how it looks at scale. It's a little frightening thinking of how large it is. I mean, that 1,400 square feet is quite large. And of course, if the design ends up being in this rectangle form, it'll be under 1,000 square feet, but that's still pretty big.
It is, yeah.
It really is. So it'll be a very different kind of experience moving through that space. And I guess I just the only other thing I have to say is how much I have appreciated all of the beautiful landscaping and the gardens that people have created in Charlotte, and all around Charlotte. Everywhere you look, there are flowers and wonderful plants and such interesting plants that it makes it a joy to live here. I think the gardening culture is the most developed and sophisticated culture that we have here in the Charlotte area. So kudos to all the gardeners out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you again to the Charlotte Council of Gardening Clubs, to Jill and Mary Beth, and obviously thank you, Susan, for being open to share these designs and sort of especially as they're in progress. So thank you so much for being open enough and transparent to do that. I want to thank everybody who has watched this live today for your comments and all of your really encouraging remarks for Susan, and I want to thank everybody at ASC for helping put this together. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it, and we're looking forward to getting this finalized and installed. So in another year or two, you'll be able to see this in the new airport building.
I look forward to seeing it.
Absolutely. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to getting across that finish line. So thank you, everybody, again for joining us. I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.